And we're live. Hugo, really good to have you here. I'm really stoked for us to have this conversation. Loads to cover. A lot of people are excited. Many questions coming up already. The topic couldn't be, I think, more timely. Especially within these last 3 years, where everybody went remote. Everybody works with clients from all over the world. People have employers and employees sitting in every single corner of the planet. And here we are. Thanks
Yeah,
for joining us.
thanks for having me, Diego. I was excited to get on board.
Yeah, stoked to have you. So to kick things off, I'd love to hear a little bit of your background. So if you can, present yourself, introduce yourself to the audience, the life pre Web3 and the life after Web3, if it exists. How did
Yeah.
you got here?
So on myself, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Rise. I've been living in the US for the past 15 years. Initially, I come from Europe, from France. Moved here, went to school here. Started a few companies before getting into Rise. Right before Rise, I was operating a marketing agency in the blockchain space. And I got to work with lots of freelancers all around the world, spent a lot of time on all these marketplaces, such as Fiverr, Upwork, that would connect us with, gig workers, basically, and got fascinated by this workforce. After working for about 2 years on this agency, I knew we had to wind it down because we were working, it was at the time in 2017, 2018 when the ICO market, got to its peak and then crashed. I don't know if you remember that period
The
of
good
time.
old times, yeah.
Yeah. But essentially we moved on from the agency. I knew I wanted to stay in the space. And that's when I met my co-founder, Andrew, who's today the CTO. So we did, for a couple of months, brainstormed around, practical, real world use cases where we could leverage these new technologies to, enhance the life, the workflows, just improve experiences. And after a couple of brainstorming sessions, we led in on the idea that, we could help out independent workers be even more independent and empowered by leveraging these technologies for payments and their projects, basically. So that's how Rise got started. It got started as a marketplace that would connect businesses and contractors and then facilitate projects, milestones, payments, everything on chain, basically, to provide faster, more secure, more efficient transactions. So we launched that marketplace in 2021, and it was really the V1 of our product. And after a few months of activity, of volume, we realized we had a much bigger opportunity, not by connecting businesses, and talent. They already knew the right talent. They met them, all over the internet. But the struggle for them was to pay them all around the world. How to onboard them compliantly, pay them compliantly all around the world. So that's when we thought, and that's when we pivoted. We already have the payment infrastructure on board. The fiat and crypto payment. Why don't we add a compliance layer to that, and then help any company hire, onboard, and pay workers all around the world in whatever currency they wanted. So yeah, that's how we got to the product we have today and how we got started in this space.
That's awesome. I think that a lot of people, including myself, when you talk about the ICO boom, a lot of people got into this space, mostly this sort of like quote unquote new generation, right? Because if you want to talk OGs that got in, Bitcoin 2010, 11, 12, they're not even among us anymore, right? They're living in Jupiter or Mars or whatever. But a lot of those people from the class of 2017, which includes me, got really excited to see a different perspective into the space, right? Because if you got in early into crypto meant Bitcoin, and Bitcoin meant just the freedom of transacting with each other, and obviously storage of value. But in 2017, I think it flourished this idea. Obviously, the ICOs were a big hype cycle, but these ideas of, yes, we can do beyond that, right? We can still leverage the technology that sits at its core through blockchain, especially what you guys doing through payments. But there is much more we can do that, right? Which is really exciting. So, yeah, go on.
And also on that front, in 2017, 2018, I think when I got into the space, working with ICOs, et cetera, I really started to understand how, on top of, facilitating transactions around the world, it could bring people together. Like when we were working on these projects, we were building communities of thousands and thousands of people in all corners of the world, that rallied behind a project. And that's when we saw the power of online communities. Like it was, I remember back in the day when Discord started being a thing, for communities to be held on that platform. And like we were able to speak with someone based in Australia, someone else based in Japan, in Europe, and all connected, and really started to understand that these technology would make the world even more borderless, on top of transactions. So really got fascinated by it, when we got into it.
Love it. So getting a little bit into the weeds of the product as well, but without too much going into that. Um, what is the problem with the current sort of like payment processing system,
Mm-hmm.
or the older, even, if you will, and why does blockchain, cryptocurrency, Web3 as a whole set of
Yeah.
or stack of technologies makes it better?
Yeah.
What is your take on that?
So, I mean, traditional, and I'll stick to payroll for the sake of the
Right.
conversation. Traditional payroll systems, have, first of all, haven't been, their tech stack haven't been updated in, years. There were companies started in the 1990s, in the early 2000s, with very, very old technology, and they come with lots of, inaccuracies or inefficiencies. So, most often than not, these traditional payroll systems are domestic. So if you're a company, trying to onboard international workers and pay international workers, these traditional payroll systems will not be able to help you out, because they only facilitate domestic transactions and domestic compliance, basically. So that would be the first one. They only operate in fiat. So, if you're, let's say, a newer generation of a company and you hold your treasury in both fiat and stable coins or crypto, and you want to find you know, payment systems and payroll systems that will mesh, and blend all these kinds of currencies together, you won't be able to do that with traditional payroll systems. If you have workers around the world that want to be paid in different currencies than what you have on your treasuries or even stable coins, and you don't have that as part of your treasury, how do you do that with traditional payroll systems? Um, Aside from currencies and treasuries and compliance, these payroll systems are not necessarily extremely modular. So, and they don't integrate well into other systems. So when you're an employee, you're going to have to sign up on the payroll system. You're going to have to then sign up on a different system to get your insurance, to get your other, anything in your journey, in your financial journey, you'll have to sign up on different systems, pass KYC multiple times. So it's, overall, there's a lot of inefficiencies that can be solved with these newer, payroll solutions, including the one that we're building, basically.
Yeah, I find it quite exciting because, especially when we got the opportunity to speak, that was the first thing that came to mind. There are two ways that I suffer from the problem that you guys are tackling, right? So one fold is that I work with clients all over the world, right? As an advisor, and an investor, I work with clients all over the world, right? I have people in the US, I have people in Dubai, I have people in Australia, in Europe where I'm based, in Brazil where I'm from, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it has always been a very difficult or daunting process to receive payments from overseas, right? Especially because, one, of bank fees, and then two, the difficulty or the time, right?
Yeah.
And many clients choose that the receiver should pay for those fees, and so many times very high fees are coming on top of the agreement or the fee agreement or whatever we've
Yeah.
done, right? So as someone that is receiving, I have that pain. And then on the other hand, on the second side, the second flip side, I hire a bunch of different people because I work with several different types of creators or editors or copywriters from all over the world, right? And there is one example for me that was an aha moment that I was like, I've been super deep into the space, but this moment for me was like, that's why crypto matters, right?
Yeah.
There's a guy I work in India, and we've done a small job together, and his fee was like $200, right? I was like,
Mhm.
cool, I'll send you over PayPal, so whenever you get there, you can withdraw to your bank account. And he was
Yeah.
like, fine, let's do it. And then I sent to him, when it arrived to him, he needed to pay $20 to
Yeah.
get that $200 into his bank account,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is 10% of the actual money that I was sending to him. So I just went there and sent him $20 because I obviously don't think it's fair. But in a small scale, that's how, complex this whole ecosystem is. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, bro, can I just like onboard you to crypto and show you how this could be much more seamless? And still, he's a young creator. I was like, no, 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 crypto is too risky for me. Right. So
Mhm.
we have sort of like the problem we can solve. The problem is critically there, but we
Mhm.
still have that difficulty of people from the outside thinking that crypto is risky because they think crypto, they think Bitcoin going from 20 to 69 and 69 to 10, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's sort of like my personal experience that I have within it, which I think is quite fitting with what you guys are building.
Yeah, and I have so many different stories of customers. Like we have the ability to onboard customers that are Web3 native, like DAOs, protocols, etc., and also more traditional businesses. And we have a lot of examples of traditional businesses with treasuries in fiat, with international workers that are, located in like unstable markets, or countries where there's inflation or the local currency is very unstable.
Mm-hmm.
These guys want to hedge themselves, with USD, basically by getting access to USD. Those companies, they know how to send USD as a wire. But it's going to come with cost, and it's going to take time for the money to arrive, because banks work on their own schedule, right? They don't work 24/7. And so these companies come to us, and we tell them, hey, we can help you send stablecoin to these people, without even having to worry about wallet addresses, about gas costs, etc. And that will be the most efficient way for you to send, and give USD to that worker, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And these companies were able to literally retain talent just because of that feature. So many different use cases, that we see, where having a dual or hybrid payroll system, is what we call it, is going to become more and more critical for a business, whether Web3 native or Web2.
Yeah, I love that element as well of looking into the web too, because obviously, I spent this last 3 years working with Fortune 500 brands that wanted to tap in or want to tap in Web3, right?
Yeah.
And the first major issue they have is the compliance element of having cryptocurrency as an asset within their balance sheet, right?
Yeah.
As a public traded company.
Yeah.
So that has always been the biggest blocker for them, right? And I think that's also probably a space you guys are playing in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we only work with stable coins for now, because from a tax denomination standpoint, it makes a lot more sense. It's very efficient. We don't do direct payments in, let's say, Bitcoin or Ethereum. Eventually, we'll get there at some point, but right now we just facilitate stablecoin. But a lot of it, that we do has to do with education. How do you educate
Right.
those Web2, operator, payroll managers that have 20 years of experience leveraging traditional payroll system? How do you make them understand how to use our system? Our system is built on top of smart contracts. So how do you make them understand how to sign transactions with wallets that we provide to them, and make them understand that there's always a double layer of security that you have to do when interacting with smart contracts, by signing transactions, for example, with your wallet. So a lot of our challenge, has to deal with educating, I would say, the masses, and onboard the masses to our system. And to date, I think we've been doing a pretty good job. Right now, we have, I think, total onboarded contractors on the system. We have about 50,000,
Mhm.
and hundreds of organizations, and a lot of these are either payees or payers, come from the traditional world. So it's definitely something that we think about every single day.
What has been the crucial turning point for you from that aha moment of that's how we're going to onboard the masses? What has been like the thing that you've got the most traction so far?
I mean, I think it's really, the ability to automate the routing between fiat and stable coins, basically.
Hmm.
We have a lot of companies in both use cases, like either Web3 native businesses that have treasuries in stable coins or treasuries in crypto, trying to have workers get paid in fiat, and they don't know how to deal with that. The conversions, a lot of them, some of them, they have to go through exchanges, and then that's how they get fiat, but there's a huge fee that comes with it. Or on the Web2 side, when they have treasury in fiat, and they're trying to send out payments to, let's say, 100 workers at the same time in stable coins. Like we speak to, and I was just on a call with a payroll manager earlier today. She was like, I'm so happy I found you guys, because I literally spend hours, one day of my entire month is dedicated to getting all the addresses and then making sure one by one that all the payments go out, and that there's no error with the addresses, with the gas fees, et cetera, et cetera. So
Mhm.
we automate all that process. And I think that value prop to, traditional payroll managers that are trying to pay people in stable coins or just trying to attract younger generations of talent by having that hybrid system is key, and has done us, a lot of good, honestly, for the past few months.
Yeah, yeah, I love that because, as someone really deep in the industry, one of the things that I'm always questioning myself, which is the big question from the outsiders, which is what's blockchain's killer app, right? Or what's cryptocurrency killer use case? And a lot of times I tend to think that we don't need that killer feature. I think what we need is solutions that solve real problems and make things better, like this. I wouldn't say that this would be like the killer feature for the sort of like the cryptocurrency side of things, but it does solve a major problem, right?
Yeah.
It does make it much better. And I think that that's kind of like what I'm always looking for in the industry.
Yeah, I think to me the most important application today, and eventually there will be others, is cross-border payments and the ability to move money, whether it's a small amount or a massive amount, but money across borders, with no intermediary at the speed of the internet. Like paying cents to move thousands and thousands of dollars, if not much more, is to me is a killer app. It's
Hmm.
like disrupting the entire traditional finance system as we know it.
Hmm.
And when it comes to global payroll, I think it makes even more sense being built, on these rails, basically. So, and I think that need is only going to grow over the next, few years as younger generations of people get into the workforce.
Yeah, yeah. Especially like we raised this generation to don't have patience with anything, right? Everything is like now, now, now.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
imagine like if milliseconds of loading a website gets people pissed off. Imagine they need to wait like 5 business days to be able to get their money on their hands so they
yeah.
can spend it, right?
And it's actually quite funny because we see a lot of our users that come from the traditional world, a lot of them still withdrawing fiat because we have that capability on the system as well. And they'll ask us on a Friday night, at 6 p.m. or a Saturday morning, like, hey, I withdrew yesterday, where's my money? But we have to educate them even on the traditional side of things and tell them, listen, like, banks don't work 24/7. If you want your money instantly, you can use this stablecoin rail, basically, that we have. And when they try that system, when they try that rail, they become much more, like like at ease, basically, and okay with our system. But so there's education both on how to use Web3, but also education on why traditional payments and fiat payments are not instant. So
Yeah.
it's quite interesting what we see on the platform.
Yeah, yeah. That's exciting. I'm very passionate about something that I one part of, and two, I can't spend enough time in this because it's so clear that this is reshaping the entire way of how we communicate, how we shop, how we think. It's impacting us financially, from a financial standpoint, because those are markets that are growing, but also is impacting us culturally and even as a society. And I'm talking about the creator economy,
Yeah.
right? And that for me is such a huge market that we know it's going to keep growing. It's forecasted by 2030 that's going to be worth 450 billion, the market, the creator economy market per se. And I know you guys are spending quite some time and also developing features and obviously supporting that. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think, so moving payments aside, we have as part a key component of our infrastructure is called the RISE ID. And essentially, the RISE ID is the professional identity of a worker or an organization on chain. So, essentially, it's a smart contract, a unique smart contract leveraging a specific standard
Hmm.
that each of our user, whether it's like an organization onboarding or an individual or creator onboarding, will mint during onboarding. They will own that smart contract through one of their wallets. So let's say it could be a MetaMask, for example, or a Coinbase wallet. If they don't have a wallet, if they're not, Web3 friendly, we help them create what we call a RISE security key, which is essentially an encrypted wallet on their browser,
Nice.
backed by a password. So that wallet, whether the encrypted or the MetaMask, will own that RISE ID. That RISE ID, using RISE, you can see this as a double, second layer of security. So every single transaction on the system, whether you're approving a payment or you're initiating a withdrawal in fiat or crypto, will ask for a signature from a wallet that is associated to that RISE ID. So it brings up security. But back to the creator, the creators and the creator economy. On that RISE ID, we can add attributes. Either RISE adds the attribute, or the user can, the user will always give permission to add these attributes to the RISE ID, but they can add other attributes. So think about a creator being able to add their certifications or their awards that they won, or the bootcamps that they finished, or their work history, their payment history, literally all kinds of attributes. That RISE ID can then be plugged into different systems. So back to when I was mentioning, traditional payroll systems not being extremely modular, with our system being built on chain with the RISE ID, you can plug, yourself, the RISE ID, into different systems. And a use case that we're exploring right now is, those creators that are, let's say, all around the world, those independent contractors, they have a RISE ID. They passed KYC with us. So we verify everything, their identity, addresses, anti-money laundering checks, etc. If we have an insurance provider on the system, so all of the contractors on RISE get access to travel and health insurance worldwide via one of our partners. We're exploring with that partner the ability for users, instead of having to do KYC on RISE and then KYC on that insurance provider, they could pass that information along, and that check basically, via a wallet signature through the RISE ID. So by having this RISE ID, you can plug into different systems, and then this has limitless opportunities. So you can have your RISE ID plugged into a Web3 LinkedIn. And in the future, I'm sure traditional platforms will have those abilities as well. So that can help you get more work. You can get access to employers will be able to filter through applicants via their RISE ID, their work history, their certifications, pretty instantly. So it has a lot of opportunities. This component of our infrastructure.
Interesting. So a lot of what it's saying is that you're one helping to build almost like a curriculum on chain, or based on that ID, can be off chain, of course, but based on that ID and that being the single entry point or single point of touching point. And then other things you can do to that is obviously verifying identity through KYC in different manners or different mechanisms that might enable or might be needed for you to take certain actions in other programs or ecosystems, maybe something with the government or maybe something with insurance or things like that.
Yeah.
But you also sort of enabling through the smart contract. I'm imagining that you could have even potential ways of splitting payments. So let's say we work in 3 or 4 different creators. One done the copy, the other has done X, and the other has done Y. Once the payment ping on that wallet, you can program where that can be split and to whom that can go to as well, optimizing and simplifying, 1, fees for everyone, but 2, the speed of how that is split and transact. Is that correct?
Yeah. So basically, it helps with payments on one front, and there's many different pay schedules that you can set up. You can add different RISE IDs to payments, and there's even more that I can talk about with our upcoming products that we're going to launch, by the end of the year. And then there's this, the way we see this RISE ID as like the connecting tissue between HR, finance, compliance, and other providers. Which traditional payment system and payroll system do not have. So yeah, I think we're just exploring. We're seeing the tip of the iceberg right now, but the opportunities are limitless, and we're already exploring use cases with many different potential partners and providers. So always on the door is wide open for all kinds of partners to work with us and leverage the RISE ID.
That's awesome. And I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I don't know the product enough, but I'm assuming that there isn't a fee for people to transact within it. Is that correct?
So we have different sets of fees. Obviously, we're operating a business and have to live. But most often than not, on the payee side of things,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's no fees. If your clients covers, let's say it's going to cover your your wire fee when initiating a withdrawing fiat, that's the only fee basically that a payee has to pay,
Yeah,
being on the system.
that's
So
exactly what I meant. And then from an ID perspective, how does that work?
from an ID
Yeah,
perspective,
the Rise ID you mentioned before.
I mean, that's also completely free. Like
Right.
you're going to set up yourself on Rise because your customer has invited you or your employer has invited you. During the onboarding process, we're going to verify we're going to do your KYC, and we have providers for that. That's obviously free for the payee, and also for the payer to that extent. And then through that process, once they're verified, they can mint their Rise ID, and there's no cost associated to that.
Yeah,
So
that's what I wanted to get to, because that was my initial assumption, and I'm super stoked that you confirmed that. Because if you look into other payment processes that we have, for example, Stripe or PayPal, as I mentioned before, one of the difficulties for small payments specifically is the fee, right? Because the fee tends to be the sort of like where things skyrocket a little bit, right? And as the example I used from PayPal before. So, I think that's also one of the core elements of that, right? Obviously, depending on the chain you get to use and depending how busy that chain gets, fees can be higher, right? But there's many L2 solutions to mitigate that type of problem as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and we're seeing it firsthand, like we have, and it's also part of the education that we're trying to do and show our users, because a lot of users still, they withdraw on L1. So when they withdraw on L1 and mainnet, they have, the gas fee, the gas cost, and it takes, slightly more time to receive their funds. But when they do it on, our entire system is built on Arbitrum.
Right.
We also have capabilities on other L2s. But when they when they withdraw on Arbitrum, the payments are instant. And we even cover the fee because it's so low. It's like, it's like a cent per transaction. So, and when users realize that, it's really their, aha moment. And when they see the benefits are being built on these rails.
That's exactly what I wanted to get to. I didn't know about that, and I'm stoked that that's the solution, because that's where I see, like, especially when you start talking about like micropayments or small payments, that's where the big change is, right? Because if I'm like sending 20, 30, 40, 50 or 100 grand, obviously I'll care about the $5 fee or $10 fee I need to pay, but I wouldn't as much, right? But when you're talking about like smaller payments and the day-to-day things that creators might be exchanging within themselves, or that's where the nitty-gritty gets interesting as well. Super interesting. Shifting gears to something that is on everybody's mind and everybody's top of mind right now, which is AI, right? And obviously AI is coming a lot within that sort of like micropayment element, or we're thinking about agents, AI agents that are going to be empowering creators, but also going to be transacting between themselves. I'm really deep into that rabbit hole, and I'm really excited about that, because what brought me into crypto in 2017 was IOTA. I don't know if you ever heard of them. The dream they sold me was what brought me into crypto, and I think a lot of what they laid out was quite interesting from many aspects. Not necessarily talking about the way they executed and how successful the project is, but their overall idea, which is around a lot of like micropayments, machine to machine payments, the industry 4.0 that we talk so much about, right? And I think that AI and the rise of AI has brought a lot of that conversation back to the equation, which is we will see, agents acting upon our behalf, and we will see, agents creating content alongside with creators and things on that nature. And I think that if you think about a payroll system that will incentivize and enable that, I don't think bank's going to be the one, because, agents won't have 5 business days to wait a payment to clear from one side to another. So I think it's another huge bullish use case for payroll systems, blockchain enabled and cryptocurrency based. I just would like to hear your take on that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way we see AI ourselves for now, at least we leverage it internally, for many different, functions of the business, whether it's engineering or, content or, other processes. But customer facing, the way we see AI today is literally having agents, a Rise agent helping payroll managers. I mean, both sides of the system, but managers on one end. Let's say you want to make a hire to someone based in the Philippines, and you don't know what's the base salary for, let's say, a content writer over there. So that agent, will be able to help you through that process. And also, if you have compliance questions, etc., they'll be able to, essentially plug into our database of articles and, answer questions right away. And then helping payees as well. whether they have tax related questions, compliance related, HR related questions. So AI in that sense for now on our end. But then if you start thinking about agents that will act on behalf of users on our system, obviously as a payroll system, there's a lot of KYC that comes into play. As a money service business, we have very strict policies and procedures, and we take this extremely seriously over here. So we'll need to find a way to have those KYC user essentially enable agents, maybe via their RISE ID. That could be something that could be done, signing transactions to the RISE ID to enable an agent to act on their behalf. So we're exploring AI, not on the AI agent payroll, but it's definitely something that we'll get to. But we're definitely thinking and already leveraging AI in many different ways over here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rabbit hole by itself, and I think it's literally just getting started. I think we are getting to that point in the curve of technology that those things going to start sort of like coming more and more together. You talked a lot about compliance, obviously. How is the current landscape for you guys? We were chatting right before you based in New York, especially in the US, right? Like how is navigating that ecosystem? What are maybe the learnings and the difficulties, or still the wishes you would have? Because I think it's something that a lot of people tend to think, oh, it's a bit boring topic, or it's a bit complex, but it's a reality that we are facing right now within our industry, especially for companies that are based in the US, which it's been challenging, especially with the last, let's say, 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, I think we're all going towards the right direction. You have MiCA in Europe that's providing much more of a robust framework, both for issuers, exchanges, or just crypto asset providers, and even individuals to some extent. And then in the US, you're starting to have more and more talks, in the government around the Payment Stablecoin Act, that's coming into play. So it's not live yet, and it's hopefully going to be at some point later this year. But you also have the elections coming up, so things will move through Congress at a much slower pace for the time being. But overall, there's progress that's being made on a clear regulatory environment. Us as a payroll company, it's we sit in a different bucket than a cryptocurrency exchange, for example. But obviously compliance is top of mind for us, and that's why we have a full-on compliance team and a compliance officer and different analysts that help us through the process. We have to put compliance when it comes to onboarding the right individuals and all of the verification of identity, addresses, documents, etc. So the KYC and KYB, even for the payers, making sure that these companies are owned by people that are good people, not sanctioned, not in different kinds of lists, etc., or located in countries that are not accepted. So you have the onboarding piece, then you have the transaction monitoring piece, that we have to monitor. So we have I think we have like 10 different policies that we have, whether that's onboarding, transaction monitoring, customer complaints, etc. Like tons of different policies. We're registered in the US as a money service business at the federal level. We have we're going after money transmitter licenses at the state level, even though we don't have to because we are a payroll company. Again, we have that agent of the payee exemption that we rely on. So there's lots of intricacies that we've been diving in. Now, our ambitions are to build, financial products for both employers and employees. So then, we get into a different set of licenses and frameworks and regulatory environments. So, we're doing more, and we want to do more than just payroll. So, it's but definitely something that we're proactive about, and that every day we talk about it, and we make movements towards having all these in place.
I can imagine, especially if everything changing every day, right?
It's already you have like the concept of like starting a company that's already hard, and then starting a crypto company in a regulatory environment that's not really extremely clear. It adds another set of challenges, but I think that we're still extremely early on. And as more time goes by, there will be much more clarity.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. You just mentioned something that I'm excited to hear more about around the going beyond the payroll, system and sort of like enabler, if you will. And I know you guys are also playing a role within sort of like the health and travel side of
Right.
that, right? Can you expand a little bit on that, and why does that
Yeah.
make sense? And again, maybe we don't need to go too technical, but why this stack offers a better solution for
Yeah.
things like that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I'll tell you what we have today and how we've come to it, and then the different products that we plan on launching, and why this stack is the relevant one for that. So we started as the contractors, like helping companies onboard and pay in the international contractors. A lot of companies throughout time started telling us, "Hey, we'd love to do more for our contractors, because they're extremely important to our team. Do you have insurance in place?" So that's when we went out and
Mm,
added travel and health insurance globally for all these international workers. And that was a huge success. Like, we were actually able to close more deals because we had this more compelling offering to the independent contractors.
right.
As time went by, more customers told us, "Hey, it's cool to have the contractors on the platform, but we also want to bring on our full-time employees on the system." So employees that we have to provide healthcare and benefits for, or taxes deducted right away for them when payments go to them. So that's when we essentially, sometime last year, were like, it's clear to us that naturally will evolve into not only helping businesses and contractors, but also helping businesses and their full-time employees. So with that in mind, we're launching by the end of the year, or like on-chain, I think it's the first of its kind, on-chain payroll engine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's literally what it means. It's a payroll engine with tax implications that will be deducted right away on chain and sent to different buckets that will then be sent to the relevant agencies at a local, state, and federal level in the US, the equivalent in different countries. We're starting in the US, and then we have the ambition to deploy into different countries all around the world. Essentially, tied to that payroll engine will be our employer of record service. So Rise, owning the actual entities and employing people on behalf of customers. So let's say you have a business based in Portugal, you're trying to hire someone based in the US, and you want to provide healthcare, benefits, and you want them to have their taxes handled right away. We'll be able to do just that. So from the compliance, HR, and the payments. And essentially, that worker will have a Rise ID, and we'll be able to say, this worker is based in New York, and these are his local, state, and federal taxes. So whenever you send a payment on chain to that Rise ID, the Rise ID will invoke different transactions. So that's what we mean by on-chain payroll engine, basically, and that obviously brings up efficiencies, the speed of movement, and our ability to pay these agencies. We can then, in terms of other products, we can think about that we want to offer, the ability to get your salary in advance, based on your work history. So based on your work history, we can see that you've been employed by this company for 6 months. So now we know that, for the next, let's say, 6 months, you're going to have these payments. We give you the ability to get paid, before. All of that done based on your work history that we can read from your Rise ID. And then other kinds of products, that are more helping, like, that are grasping more of the financial journey that an employee, or even an employer, but an employee for now, will go through. So after they get paid, what do they do? Do they cash out to their bank? Do they cash out to a wallet? But then what do they do with that? And so a lot of products that are associated with helping both Web3 and Web2 users get access to the DeFi ecosystem by having different protocols and being able to say, for example, I'm getting paid X amount every single month. Automatically, I want 50% going to my bank account, 40% going to my MetaMask, and then I want to, place 10% on, this particular lending protocol. So educating and enabling these users to have access to the entire DeFi ecosystem. So we also have, I mean, telling so much, but we have, we're going to be launching a card program, in the next couple of months, where payees, as soon as they get paid on Rise, will be able to spend, without even having to cashing out, but will be able to spend right away to any, Visa or MasterCard accepting merchant. So lots of these products that will stack, that will add to their stack from a financial standpoint.
I need to stop you right there because we're going into two areas that I'm really excited about, and I cannot like let you go keep going because I wanna drill into it. There's one thing I say since I got to this industry, which is the main motive why I love this industry is because every single day someone blows my mind, right? And that's no bullshit. But the today's prize goes to you because that's absolutely amazing what you just said. I'm super stoked about it. It's
Yeah.
it's it's really interesting, and I can see so many different applications to everything we were saying before. But I want to tackle into two different aspects of that. One is the element of like paying taxes at its source, because I think that's one of, apart from volatility, which you guys are tackling by so far not enabling other crypto apart from stable. I think that is already per se a way of, you can sort of like don't scare off users, especially people that are not in the industry.
Yeah.
The second fold is taxes, right? Like how
Yeah.
the hell do I put that on my tax form? And obviously
Yeah.
the US is much more advanced on that side, but if you
Yeah.
look into countries like Portugal or other countries in Europe, like still very far from it, right? So that's a very interesting way. I know you guys haven't fully rolled out to that yet, but I obviously something that will be on the roadmap at a certain point.
Yeah.
So I find that quite intriguing and exciting. But then the second fold of that, which is almost like Robinhood and Revolut or Trade Republic and applications like that had enabled to the user, that now we got everyone being able to invest on stocks, is because they handle exactly that. Right. When I invest, for example, I have a Trade Republic account, and when I invest on stocks, and as soon as I sell a stock, all the bureaucracy is handled automatically for me, and I can
Yeah.
just download a PDF that I give to my tax consultant, that she goes there and does all the work. So if I would have to do all of that, that likely would keep me away from like investing on stocks, because I don't want to be in a situation that I'm committing a mistake that I don't even know it existed. Right. And I think the same applies to crypto right now. I'm not talking about investment. I'll talk about receiving funds in crypto, like, paying for your salary, as you're mentioning. And the fact that you guys are applying, smart contracts to that extent is really exciting, and something that I just wanted to expand a little bit more, because if you understand the implications, positive implications that it will cause, that it will blow your mind as much as it did with mine, because, it's huge.
Yeah, and that's also why I think I think we're all markets are going, and some markets are more advanced than the others, but we're all going towards the right direction, right? So the more we advance, the more clarity will be around all of these topics, and that will make non-Web3 users, or even some Web3 users, less afraid of getting into it, and instead of tipping their toes, they will dive right into it. So again, that's also why we decided to only, so everything's denominated in USD for now. Everything is, we leverage USDC to an extraordinary amount, and I can dive into that as well. There's already USDT as well on the system, but that's why we chose stable coins and not anything else when it comes to crypto related currencies. And so far it's been amazing. I think by educating users, showing them that it can be done and it's doable, and we're doing it for them, it helps both the payees and the payers as well, by having more, they can make more informed decision, basically seeing all of the different articles and explanations that we have around those different topics.
Yeah, I love that. And
yeah.
the second sort of like second fold I wanted to tap in is another gigantic element of data, which is enabling, I think, especially within the US, right? I'm not very familiar with like, credit scores and all of that, because I haven't, I never lived in the US, but I know it from a little bit from the outside. And I think that's another great opportunity for tapping into elements like that, right? As you said, your employee history is it's something that sort of like you can predict behavior on, and then you can open credit options, or empower credit score, which then has a whole implication in the system for getting a mortgage on a house, or paying for your education and things like that, right? Is that where you guys are headed with that?
I mean, there are so many opportunities, so many use cases, but ideally, that's definitely where we want to go. And again, we really see this RISE ID, that unique identifier, professional ID on chain, being that connecting tissue. because you can add attributes, you can work, you can see history on the blockchain, so everything can be traced. Basically, nothing can be, nothing can be interfered with.
Right.
And then, by having access to a work history and a payment history, and obviously those attributes can be shared. The user decides if it wants to be shared or not. So let's say I'm applying for, I want to rent an apartment in New York. And they're going to be wanting to check my work history and the salary I make, etc. So I'll be able to, plug that into their system. And I think to some extent we'll have to do some work to enable those very, very traditional and old systems to accept those technologies. But essentially, the user will accept to do that, to send that information.
That's awesome. And then the third fold of my mind-blowing element of the day is the DeFi side of things, right? Because of course there things gets a little bit more speculative and also a bit more risky depending on the directions the user wants to choose. But obviously that's a choice they have, whether they want to play in that area or not. But then you start having many other elements with that, because then you can potentially look into lending, borrowing, investing, getting a piece of your salary automatically going into Bitcoin every month because that's what you decide doing, right? So instead of waiting the market to go up and down, you just can, invest every month. Or different mechanisms you can utilize within DeFi, like yielding and farming and blah, 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 right? It's another rabbit hole, but I think that having the bridge to connect the two and allowing the user to do that, it's such a winner as well.
And that's exactly what we intend to do. We don't want to build the protocols ourselves, I mean, for now, at least, but we want to give these users, Web2 and Web3, the ability to get access to that DeFi ecosystem. Whether it is a marketplace where we can see, hey, based on what's your risk appetite, basically, and these are the options that you have for lending, for borrowing, for investing, etc. And obviously have them, be fully aware of what they're doing and that they're taking those decisions on their own, and then help them with all of the, tax and compliance subjects that come with those. So like post transaction, after you get paid by your employer, and you get access to the DeFi ecosystem, helping you, navigate all of these, waters, basically.
That's awesome. And I think the decision of not building makes a lot of sense because they're built already, right? And that's the beauty of Web3, because you don't need to build the entire ecosystem. You can plug and play, right?
Exactly.
And that's why it's so exciting.
And back to saying that traditional payroll system was not fully integrated, or it was hard for, to integrate with, not very modular. Web3 solves that issue, to an extremely important amount. We can plug into different systems, we can stack up different products, different modules. Honestly, I have chills just talking about it.
I absolutely see the passion, and I understand the opportunity is endless,
limitless. And as you have younger generations getting into the workforce that want more location flexibility or just more financial flexibility, how do all of these employers, manage to attract and retain talent? It's by having the ability to employ all around the world seamlessly, and then providing that financial flexibility to their workers.
Yeah. The last thing I want to touch on, because that bit you spoke before is where I'm chopping it, because there's so many things that were interesting that you were saying. But from the very beginning till 15 minutes ago, the biggest question I had in mind, and the question I wanted to ask at the end, which is quite convenient that it's coming to that, was how does the user use the salary they get on their daily life? Right? Because of course you can bring that into crypto and everything, and it's there in your wallet, but I cannot go with my computer or with my MetaMask and try to, buy shoes in the shopping mall, right? You teased that a little bit. I didn't know you guys were working on that, so I'd love to hear more about the card element that you mentioned before.
And we've gotten a lot of demand from users, individuals, saying hey, I mean, literally, and I think that's how you should build companies to some extent. At some point, the feedback you get, and you can see, recurring feedback that defines your roadmap. Obviously, you have to.
I love that.
To balance it and analyze it, but for us, it makes total sense. We have 50,000 users that are onboarded on the system. A lot of them have gotten to us saying hey, instead of cashing out to my bank account, and it takes time, it process, there's a lot of wiring fees, etc. or crypto that I cannot spend today, what could I do? So that's how we started diving into offering a car program, basically. So we're actively working on it, and essentially the goal is to make the experience even more seamless for users. Like they won't even have to log into the system; they'll get a notification, and they'll be able to go spend those funds.
That's awesome. If I'm not a user yet, I would
Yeah.
gladly become, but I have
Okay.
a feature. I have a feature wish.
What is it? Tell me.
You know what I'm always saying? I'm always trying to get people to understand, and I understand the complexity behind it, but it's just something that I think would be groundbreaking as well as you guys move towards that direction. So imagine me, not as a employee, right, but someone that is in the space, and
Uh-huh.
I've invested on a project,
Yeah.
and the tokens of the project is what I hold right now. Imagine the possibilities of me using that token to go out and purchase things on the real world, right? There's thousands of implications with that, but I
Yeah.
think is a direction, as you said before, right? As we evolve as an industry, as all those rules and incentives are getting into place, and as regulation gets better and better, I think we might get to a place of fully unlocking beyond stables the entire ecosystem for crypto, right?
Yeah.
Which I
Yeah.
think it's going to be, like really, really exciting. And that's the way I think more and more people will want to play within this industry.
And I think it's I mean, in my mind, it's clear, the roadmap is clear to that particular feature that you're asking. Obviously, as you said, there are compliance and tax implications, because when you're going to convert your whatever token into a stable and then spend that stable, there will be conversion, capital gains, or taxes related with that. But I mean, the technology is there
Yeah.
now. It's a matter of building it, enabling it, and facilitating the journey for the end user through these waters. But that, to me, is definitely something that we'll build at some point. We're approaching it step by step, but as we get more just more infrastructure in place, we'll be able to enable that. So let's have another call in a few months from now.
My feature will be still top of mind there. Hugo, thank you very much. That has been a very exciting conversation. I mean what I said about blowing my mind. I obviously knew a little bit of you guys' product. I've shared the ebook. That's kind of like how the conversation got here, right?
Yeah.
I've read it, and I find it really, really compelling. And now that we got to talk, I just got to learn much more about not what is just already happening, but also what devs are cooking, which is always what I love to hear the most.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. And again, our doors are wide open. All of the team is available on LinkedIn, on Telegram, on Twitter, on X. And yeah, we want to talk to people in the space. Whether it's potential partners, providers, users, employers. Like, we have so much in the works that we want to start opening up the conversation with all of these people.
Awesome. Thanks for investing the time, and really appreciate you coming over, Hugo. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Take care.